Hi, Matikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about how the state fought for the statement, then never used it again. Senzo Meyiwamera trial is something else, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, what happened in the Senzo Meyiwamera trial after the court returned from recess may end up being remembered as one of the strangest tactical moments of the entire case. And if you blinked, you probably missed it because on the surface, nothing dramatic happened. No shouting, no heated arguments, no exclusive ruling. But beneath the surface, there was a legal chess move that has left many courtroom observers asking one question: why fight so hard for evidence only to ignore it once you get it? Let's unpack exactly what happened. Before the court went on recess, Advocate Mnisi objected to the state handing in a particular statement, Makimbi's statement. So Makimbi's so-called statement, by the way, that particular statement as an exhibit, they were giving it as that something exhibit number. Nisi's argument was straightforward. According to the defense, the statement had not been properly introduced into evidence. In other words, before the court could simply attach an exhibit number on it, the proper legal foundation had to be laid. That objection became serious enough that the court did not deal with it immediately. Judge Ratamu Kgwatleng postponed the issue. He instructed both sides to prepare written heads of arguments explaining their legal position. The defense had to explain why the statement should not be admitted. The state had to explain why it should. That alone tells you something important. This was not viewed as a minor procedural issue. Both legal teams were expected to reach or to research the law that and run with something that is proper in front of Judge Rata, or return research the law and return after recess prepared to argue it. Ne? Fast forward to the first day back, which is 20 July 2026. Everyone expected fireworks. We expected to put it. We are going to deal with the arguments, and we know the defense lawyers are good when it comes to this, and we know who the failures are below the bar. We know who they are. But instead, Advocate Mnisi stood up and surprised almost everyone. He told the court that after receiving and considering the state's head of arguments, he had decided to withdraw his objection. Think about that. Think about that for a minute, okay? An issue important enough to delay proceedings, an issue important enough for written legal arguments was suddenly withdrawn. Even more interesting, Mnisi offered to explain why he had changed his position. Judge Mokgwatleng immediately stopped him. The judge indicated that once the objection had been withdrawn, there was no longer any need to hear the reasons. Legally speaking, that makes sense. Courts generally do not decide issues that no longer exist. No objection, no ruling. So the matter is done. The matter was over. Or so everyone thought, okay? Because this is where things became fascinating for me. Once an objection disappeared, the state got exactly what it wanted. The statement was handed in. It received its exhibit status as per their wish. Ne? They wished for that. It was given. Mission accomplished. Or was it? Or was the mission accomplished? Okay. Because what happened next puzzled many courtroom observers. Advocate Sibanda did almost nothing with the statement. Think about that carefully. The state had spent weeks defending its admissibility. The court postponed proceedings over it. Written legal arguments were exchanged. The objection disappeared. The statement was finally admitted, and then, almost nothing. Not sustained questioning. No detailed confrontation, no systematic challenge, no careful walkthrough of the disputed passages. Nix. Luto. Instead, The cross-examination simply moved on. Now, let's pause for a second. If a lawyer fights hard to have a document admitted into evidence, most people naturally expect that lawyer to use it. Normally, you would expect questions like, you previously said, why did this and that happen? Is this your signature? Why is this different from today's evidence? Can you explain this contradiction? You know the drill, all of that, Shende. But guess what? Those are the kinds of questions lawyers usually ask when a disputed statement finally becomes evidence. But that did not really happen in this situation. In this situation, it did not happen here. Did not happen. Which raises an obvious question. Why? Sibanda, you were busy. You wanted to give this an exhibit number. It has an exhibit number, but now you are not working on it. What do you mean? Come on, man. There are several possible explanations, I suppose. Perhaps the first possibility is the strategy. Perhaps the state never intended to use the statement extensively during cross-examination. Who knows? Maybe they were looking for a certain paragraph that they wanted to use. Perhaps they simply wanted it admitted so that it formed part of the court record for closing arguments. Who knows? That does not happen in litigation. No, sorry. Yes, do you understand? Evidence is sometimes introduced not because it will dominate questioning today, but because counsel intends to rely on it later. Maybe that's the reason. That is entirely possible, okay? The second possibility is far more interesting because what a wow. Perhaps once the objection disappeared, the risk of questioning became greater than the rewards. And this is where I'm leaning on, Kemnak. Maybe, just maybe, the risk of questioning became greater than the rewards. Remember, cross-examination is very dangerous, guys. Out cross-examination, every question creates an opportunity. Sometimes the witness helps your case. Sometimes the witness destroys your case with his or her answers. So Usibanda had to do a chess game there, okay? Experienced lawyers know one golden rule. Never ask a question if you are not prepared for the answer. If Sibanda believed the witness would simply deny the disputed content or explain them away or create further uncertainty, he may have decided that asking no questions was actually the safer option. I don't know. I'm just analyzing what I was seeing there. Do you understand? And that would be a tactical decision from his side. I'll give it to him. He annoys me, yes, but I'll give it to him because sana ziabuya, ziaka. Then there is a third possibility, and this is the one many courtroom observers may have been discussing. Did Mnisi withdraw? Did Mnisi's withdrawal itself create uncertainty for Sibanda? Imagine spending weeks preparing for an admissibility fight. You expect resistance, you prepare legal authorities, you prepare arguments, then suddenly your opponent says, I withdraw. Immediately you begin asking yourself, why? What changed? What does the defense know that I don't? Is this a trap? Experienced litigators constantly think several moves ahead. Sometimes an unexpected concession creates more uncertainty than continued opposition. Again, we cannot know what Sibanda was thinking. Only he knows. Now I'm just speculating at this point. Okay? But this is one of possible explanations for what unfolded. Now, let's be absolutely clear about one thing. It is important not to jump into conclusions. There is no evidence that Sibanda became confused, but in my view, he was. But there's no evidence. Okay? There's no evidence. Yes, he was. Yeah, he was. But there's no evidence. There's no evidence that he panicked, but well, those would simply be assumptions from my side, okay? Whatever we can say, based entirely on what occurred in an open court, is that the sequence was unusual. It was rather unusual. Fight hard for admission, obtain admission, barely use the statement immediately afterwards. Really? Is that normal? Is that even normal? Maybe, maybe not. That sequence naturally raises questions, guys, and those questions are legitimate from my side, okay? Because trials are about strategy. Every objection means something, every concession means something, every question and every decision not to ask a question can have a significance. Sometimes the loudest moment in court is silence. Sometimes what a lawyer chooses not to ask is more revealing than what they actually ask. Could this become important during final arguments? Absolutely. Absolutely, it is important. If the state later relies heavily on that statement in closing submissions, the defense will undoubtedly respond by reminding the court how little weight the prosecution itself appeared to place on it during cross-examination. If, on the other hand, the state barely refers to it again, observers may continue asking why so much time was spent fighting for its admission. Either way, this was one of those things you are like, It was one of those that has become one of the more intriguing tactical moments in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. It reminds us that courtroom litigation is not only about evidence, it is about timing, psychology, pressure, preparation, and sometimes the most important move is the one nobody expected, just like what Missy did there. No one was expecting that. As always, remember that only the trial court can determine what weight, if any, should ultimately be given to any evidence admitted during the proceedings. Strategic decisions by counsel are not, by themselves, proof that either side's case is stronger or weaker. So, guys, what do you think? Did the state have a longer-term strategy for admitting the statement, or was this a missed opportunity during cross-examination? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this legal analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell as we continue following every important development in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. And I will see you on our next update. Thank you. Bye-bye.